Hello, my lovely people, and welcome to Owen's Mind, a light-hearted trip through the contents of my head and the world in general. It is Wednesday, the 29th of April. My name is Owen, and here is what is on my mind today. So, as usual, I've picked out 5 stories making the headlines I would like to give my thoughts on. Links will be in the description below so you can read each article in full and show those original publications some love. So, without any further ado, let's get into it with story number 1. Cautionary tale today from BuzzFeed News. A reporter went on Good Morning America wearing no pants, and he didn't realise we could see it all. So yes, this is Will Reeve, an ABC reporter who did a piece for Good Morning America on Tuesday about pharmacies using drones to deliver prescriptions to people in a Florida retirement village. He said, what is an innovative high-tech way to get people their medicine quickly while promoting social distancing? A cheery Reeve asked during live across to the studio from his home. Drones. At the start of his chat with host Amy Robach, Reeves' camera had a pretty good shot and the graphics at the bottom of the screen covered up a lot. But after his piece concluded, it was just a wide shot of Reeves on screen with a smaller graphics banner. Suddenly things looked a little bit more revealing. As Reeves talked about the final leg of the prescription's journeys, viewers at home could see a glimpse of his own legs. Yes, apparently Reeve had only bothered to dress the top part of his body. Right at the end, as he talked about how the drone program might be scaled up, Reeve moved his bare legs up too, and it was there for everyone to see. Then, as the screen returned to the two-shot of Reeve with the Good Morning America anchors, Roback made how should we call it? An acknowledging face, shall we say, that she'd spotted it. Eagle-eye viewers watching at home also caught it and had a good laugh. So yeah, there is loads of tweets that people had spotted it and had done screen grabs. And he is wearing underwear, but he's got bare legs. So yeah, a lot of people picked up on it. There is a little gif of the news anchor's response to it, which I think is going to get used for a lot of things now. It's kind of like, yeah, okay. So yes, bit of fun. Just a little, like I say, cautionary tale. So many people now are using Zoom. I think there was a woman on. She was using something. She was like a head of a company doing like a conference call to all the board and members of staff, and she accidentally stuck a filter on where she was a baked potato or something and couldn't get it off, something like that. So just be aware with these kind of things. Full disclosure: I am indeed wearing something in my bottom half today, or am I? Yes, I am. I've got my workout stuff on. You can hear it because after I finish this, I'm going to have a little bit of a workout. But yes, Reeves said he admitted that he'd been wearing his workout clothes under his jacket because he was pushed for time, so he had his workout clothes on, workout shorts, and like a vest under his suit jacket. And once he'd done with the piece to ABC, he was going to Good Morning America, he was going to go and have a workout. So, but he took it in good humour, and everyone seemed to do it. It just seemed to be a bit of levity in an otherwise, trying time at the minute. So, nice little story to start off with. Anyway, let's move on. Story number 2, this is from Sky News. So, coronavirus again. Over 65s and non-home workers are now able to get the COVID-19 tests. So, over 65s and those who need to leave their homes for work will now be able to get tested for coronavirus as the government expands the number of people who are eligible. Health Secretary Matt Hancock announced the move as he strives to meet the government's target of reaching 100,000 COVID-19 tests per day by Friday. So from Wednesday, all those aged over 65 and those who have to leave their homes in order to do their jobs who have coronavirus symptoms will be able to get the COVID-19 test. Those in the same households of over 65s and non-home workers will also be eligible for the test if they show symptoms. So they said from construction workers to emergency plumbers, from research scientists to those in manufacturing, the expansion of access to testing will protect the most vulnerable and help keep people safe, Mr. Hancock said at Downing Street's daily coronavirus briefing. He also announced the expansion of coronavirus testing to all those working on the front line in the NHS and social care, as well as NHS hospital patients and care home residents, whether or not they have symptoms. So previously, aside from some pilot schemes, only those with COVID-19 symptoms in these groups were being tested. The Health Secretary said he was determined to do everything he can to protect the most vulnerable. So, good stuff. Government sources an additional 50 million Britons could now be eligible for the coronavirus test under this new expanded programme, bringing a total who might now be eligible to 25 million. Professor John Newton, the coordinator of the National Testing Programme, described how intensive studies of infection care homes showed the presence of symptoms was not really a good marker, both among residents and staff, for the presence of the virus. There were significant numbers who were asymptomatic, who had the virus, and so we have massively increased the amount of testing available, he said. Professor Newton added 25,000 residents in care homes have so far been tested. The Health Secretary said the government was on track to meet its target of 100,000 tests per day by the end of this month, despite less than half that figure, 43,453 tests, being conducted on Monday. Hancock said there are now capacity for 73 1,400 COVID-19 tests per day. Yeah, so they've now expanded it, but I'm a little confused because it sounds like what that professor's saying there is that there is a significant number of people who are asymptomatic, who do not show symptoms. Okay? And it's now saying you can expand tests. So if you're showing symptoms, you can now get tested for it, which is great. More testing is brilliant because we can find out, if there's, you can find out the trends, you can find out who it's affecting, who has a greater mortality rate, who it's, and you can develop patterns. And once you know patterns and how this thing is moving and who it's affecting worst and who it's affected least, then you can target your response. When we eventually get a vaccine down the line, it's probably going to be in limited supply initially because it's going to be manufactured from new. So then you can target the groups who are more likely to suffer harsher symptoms. And so I'm not disparaging testing at all. However, the fact that for most people you're only going to get a test if you're already showing symptoms seems a little bit odd. And again, maybe I'm just being naive, but people who are asymptomatic are surely more dangerous. Everybody following social distancing, if everybody does that, fantastic. People who don't have any symptoms, people who may have the virus who don't have any symptoms, they don't feel ill, may take liberties. They may not, even with social distancing, if they go to the supermarket and, the supermarkets I go to now, they're very cautious about letting you in. There's 2 meter gap, 2 meter gap. Once you're in the store, it's very hard to police. And if you get somebody stood browsing for 5-10 minutes, this is something that is annoying me at the minute. People are going to, when I go to the shop, I have a list and I go in and I go item, 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 and I'm gone. I don't need to be there long. People are going in browsing and they're spending 5-10 minutes staring at a shelf. And again, because some products are quite empty, they're stood there for ages. And you're in the aisle behind them and you're like, well, what's the protocol? Do I just wait 10 minutes while they pick an item? Or do I try and cross the aisle and go around them? Because a lot of the aisles do not have, some of the small convenience stores with narrow aisles have got like a one-way system. You can only follow it through, whereas the big supermarkets aren't doing that. So, yeah, but for me, surely what you need is to test everybody. And I know we're not there yet, but testing people who are already showing symptoms seems a little, by that point, it's kind of like you're pretty sure at the minute if you're feeling rough, chances are, it could be many, many things, but a lot of the people are going to suspect that it's COVID-19. Surely you're better testing people who are showing no symptoms, because they're the ones who are going to put other people at risk, because they're not going to be at home self-isolating. If you think you've got symptoms, you're going to get the test, but you're going to stay at home and lock yourself down for 7 days anyway, because that's the advice. So, yeah, I know it says, in other areas they're now testing people without. Where was that? Let me just so I can be specific. Where are we? Yes. Also announce the expansion of coronavirus testing to all those working on the front line NHS, social care, and hospital patients and care home residents, whether or not they have symptoms. Yes, so they are going to do it for the most vulnerable. But yeah, hopefully it needs to broaden out, because testing people who already think they have it is great, but surely you need to test people who may have it who aren't showing symptoms, because they're the ones who may, through no fault of their own, spread it around, because they're not going to lock themselves in the house. I know we're supposed to self-isolate, but if you have the symptoms, it's like, right, you stay in your house for 7 days. For the rest of us, it's like, go out responsibly, go out to exercise, go out for food. Those are the people who are doing that, who have no symptoms. They're the ones we need to know about, if that makes sense. But like I say, I'm not disparaging tests. The more testing, the better, because we can, we kind of figure out how this thing is working, who the population it's moving through, how fast it's moving, areas most affected, etc. So any testing is brilliant, but I think we need to get more. And the government itself says we need more, but this is a positive step. So like I say, I'm not disparaging it at all, but I just think for me, once it gets to that point where anybody can get a test, where I can get a test, and I'm not showing any symptoms at all, and nobody in my immediate sphere is either. But you think, well, if I can get tests and it says, maybe if it comes back positive, it's like, well, I feel great, but now that I know I'm a carrier, I'm going to self-isolate for 7 days. So anyway, that's it. Let's move on to story number 3. This is a puzzling one, so I've got my puzzling background up for this one. So this is from The Sun. Drink up. Pubs could limit Brits to 3 pints when lockdown is lifted, government advisor suggests. Puzzle background, and here's why. Let me just go through the story, then I can kind of give you why I'm kind of confused by this. So it says pubs could limit Brits to 3 pints when the lockdown is lifted, a government advisor has suggested. This is Professor Ale Winter suggested Brits were starving for pubs and the government would bring in drink limit to help them stay safe. Speaking to The Guardian, the Lancaster University academic insisted social distancing would be required if pubs reopen. Okay, fair enough, that's going to be the same for a lot of businesses. He is advising the government on how to ease the coronavirus restrictions and speaks with the Cabinet Office's behavioural science group. Pubs have been shut since the UK went into lockdown on March 23rd, but The Economist suggested landlords and shop owners could be asked to enforce new rules. He suggested landlords could ration how much beer they serve to 2 or 3 pints. Customers would then be politely told to go home. He said, people are starving for pubs, they're an important part of British culture. One of the most important things is to have a programme to say, in 2 weeks we will do such and such. You need to make the rules crystal clear and to explain to the public the rationale behind each one of them. The academic, who is also a professor at the Hebrew University Centre for the Study of Rationality, insisted things would get back to normal. He added, it will take a lot of time to move back to January 2020, but we will get there. Dr. Winter added that he's part of a team that feeds policy ideas to government, but not all are accepted. That's fair enough, isn't it? You give them your ideas and they say, well, this one we like, this one we don't like, this one is, cost effective, this one isn't. So they, brilliant. Not every idea is going to be taken. The British Beer and Pub Association suggests to put even more restrictions on pubs would be a step too far. Chief Executive Emma McClarkin said it is important that the government pays special attention to the conditions under which pubs are asked to operate when it comes to reopen. Stringent social distancing, if required, will have an enormous impact on football in pubs and consumer confidence will take time to rebuild. We anticipate that trade could be down by well over half upon reopening when the time comes, so pubs will need substantial ongoing support from government if they are to survive this crisis in the long term. Restricting and monitoring consumption on top of any COVID-19 restrictions that may need to be enforced is a step too far. It comes as alcohol sales in the home rose by 31.4%. It means an extra 300 million was spent on booze by Brits in March, taking the monthly total to around 1.2 billion. My God, we like a drink. Pub industry insiders fear staying closed until the end of the year could kill off a huge number of Britain's 48,349 local pubs. And the article goes on. Okay, so here's why this has puzzled me. Surely the idea of social distancing and only going out for brief periods is that you limit your contact with other people. You limit your time exposed. So you limit the amount of people you're kind of in contact or around and the amount of time you're around them. So saying, right, you can have 3 pints. A pint has not got a 10-minute limit on it. I know everybody knows people who could nurse a pint for 2 or 3 hours. And we all know somebody who could neck 3 pints in 5 minutes. So saying we're limiting you to 3 pints doesn't seem to change anything because you could make 3 pints last a couple of hours. If you've been stuck in the house and it's like, right, once I've had my 3rd pint, I get kicked out. You could make them last all day if you want to be out the house and you want to meet some of your mates in the pub and maybe you're across the table, you maybe are socially distanced. But it doesn't change your exposure, if that makes sense. Limiting the amount of drinks doesn't put a time limit on it. And surely it's the time you're outside and the time other people are coming into contact with where the risks lie. So saying, well, 3 pints, okay, I'm not a big drinker. For me, 3 pints would take a long time. Any kind of, just water, 3 pints would take me a long time to drink. Whereas I know people who could, 3 pints like that, nothing. So it just seems it doesn't seem a great measure. For people who, the old soak who props up the bar and has like 10 pints across a full day, and only leaves the bar to go to the loo and have a fag. Okay, yes, them it's probably going to pull that time in. But for the general person, if you're going to the pub, do you have more than 3 or 4 pints? I don't know what the average consumption is when you go out for a drink. If it's like on a Sunday lunchtime, you might go out and just have a few before you go back and have your Sunday lunch or whatever. So I don't see the 3 pint limit having the impact they want it to. Maybe I'm missing something. It just doesn't seem to gel with me. because 3 pints is a limit of quantity, but it doesn't limit the time you're in the pub, which is surely what they're getting at. You know, we don't want people out here too long. So 3 pints. Okay, I'm going to buy a pint, and that pint's going to last me an hour. I'm going to sip at it, I'm going to read the paper. And then I'm going to do it again and again. So I can be there hours if I want to. You know, if they put a time limit on it, which I know is a bit draconian, but if needs be, and you don't want to encourage people, I've only got an hour to go in and just throw drink down them. But it sounds like people are do perfectly well at home from that massive increase in alcohol sales. So I think when pubs do come back, it'll be much more from the social aspect as opposed to people are desperate for a drink. I think it's going to be people are desperate for interaction. So I don't think that would be the issue. But yeah, if you know, just let me know, because I can't see that limit would actually achieve what they want it to achieve anyway. Right, let's move on. So story number 4. So in the Mirror today, scientists say coronavirus could be treated by a nasal spray that protects the lungs. So yeah, at the minute we're hearing all kinds of things about potential treatments. There's various labs around the world who are working on stuff. You know, Trump put up some crazy stuff. However, and in his defense, from what I understand, and I've not researched this, you know, the whole light in the body thing, apparently that is a thing. There is a company that has like a catheter with like a tube, and it passes into the lungs, and then it will actually eliminate virus and sort of bacterial strains that attach themselves to your respiratory system. However, he didn't say that. He just kind of, if he'd have said, look, you know, companies are looking into this. There's all kinds of things happening at the minute. There's some research here. There's some research going on about this. There's research about a nasal spray, which I'm going to talk about. There's research about using a UV light in the body, whereby it's passed, you know, I don't know the science behind it, but it's passed through a catheter, and the UV light is passed into the tissue of the lungs, and the light itself will kill bacteria. But it's at very early stages, but it just shows that people are innovating around the world. People are coming together to try and beat this thing and help everybody out. Fantastic. Next question. But he didn't say that, and I think people have come down. The disinfectant one, I cannot justify that. The problem with Trump is he talks to the world like you talk to your mate in the pub. You know, I've heard they're doing this. You know, this disinfectant thing. Could you know what I mean? And you're like, no, you need to be a bit more concise in what you say. But yes, the overall arching thing is that people are coming up with various ways they want to beat this. And this is another one of those. So scientists believe an antiviral nasal spray could treat COVID-19 and stop the infection reaching the lungs following positive lab tests in Britain. So this is University of St Andrews spin-out company Pneumogen has carried out 3 separate lab-based studies into preventing coronavirus infections, including SARS-CoV-2 infection, the cause of the COVID-19. These have used pneumophil, a multivalent carbohydrate binding molecule, MCBMs, as I'm going to refer to them from this point on, generated using glycotage technology. So pneumophil is the company's lead MCBM and is already being developed for the universal treatment of respiratory tract infections, including influenza, respiratory syncytial virus, and now coronaviruses. Lead researcher Gary Taylor, professor of biology at St Andrews, told the Daily Mail, classic antivirals actually attack some part of the virus's machinery, whereas our drug actually inhibits the virus from even getting into the cells. We envision it being given as a nasal spray, and imagine it would be given weekly or every other day. It works by masking glycan receptors in the patient's airways and thereby preventing the entry of the virus, and has the potential to revolutionise the treatment of respiratory tract infections. So yeah, essentially when these things kind of enter your system, they bind to a cell in your body. What it sounds like they're saying is that this nasal spray kind of gets there first and blocks these receptors. So when the virus comes in, it's nothing it can attach to and do its thing. They said this provides clinicians with the opportunity to offer patients total protection against any circulating viral strain. The successful studies involved both treating infection and blocking new infections with MCBMs using plaque, visible structures in a sheet of cells in reduction tests. Pneumogen has been working closely with Public Health England's Portion facility and separate with the University of Glasgow's MRC Centre for Virus Research. At both Portion and UOG, the MCBMs were found to reduce the number of SARS-CoV-2 plaques in these tests when MCBMs were used in both prevention and treatment of the infection. Pneumogen now wants to begin clinical testing for the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. Fantastic. So its chief executive, Douglas Thompson, said, today's positive results from in vitro studies of our MCBMs against coronaviruses show that glycan binding has the potential to prevent and treat infection. This further supports the value of our universal therapeutic modality to block access to lung cells of SARS-CoV-2 as well as other viruses that cause respiratory tract infections, provided the potential for a pan-viral respiratory product. Our goal is now to rapidly begin clinical testing for the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. A glycan is a generic name for a carbohydrate complex made up from connected carbohydrate or sugar molecules. Cells are coated in glycans, as are the surfaces of many animal viruses such as SARS-CoV-2. This comes after a French study published this month of public health data which appeared to show that people who smoke are 80% less likely to catch COVID-19 than non-smokers of the same age and sex. Scientists hypothesized in their study that the nicotine which is contained in cigarettes could influence whether or not the coronavirus molecules are able to attach themselves to receptors in the body. So again, it's this binding thing. The virus has to come in and it essentially has to grab onto something. It has to attach itself to a cell. To infect you essentially. So if you can block those receptors or mask them so the virus has got nothing to attach to, it cannot infect you. Just an interesting side note, the common cold does not give you a sore throat. What happens is the viral molecules of the common cold attach to your nasal passages and your throat and all this kind of stuff. Your body doesn't have a cure for it. There's still no cure for the common cold. So it does, essentially, it does like worst case scenario, and it will kill the cell that it's attached to. So your body will literally just kill, so your body strips all the cells on your throat, so your body's response to the cold is where the sore throat comes from. It's not the cold itself, it's your body fighting it that gives you the sore throat, because these things are bound to the cells in your nasal passages and in your throat. But you can't, the body cannot kill the cold molecule. So it kills what it's attached to, which essentially gets rid of it. And that's what gives you the sore throat. I believe that's true. I'm fairly certain it is. So yeah, so this is the same sort of thing. Rather than doing that, it's just going to stop it attaching to yourself. So it's just a nasal spray every day or every other day. Well, essentially, you can, if you were exposed to the virus, if you inhaled it, it would not be able to grab onto anything and latch itself onto your system. So again, there is loads of these things going on at the minute. It sounds like research is really, really ramped up. You know, people were testing these things before, and now coronavirus came along, COVID came along, and labs are now going, well, you know, we're doing all this research on this. Could we tailor it for this particular virus? And this is happening all over the world, and loads of, this is, you know, one of the cases where, because it's worldwide, everybody is coming together. The best minds in the world are now working on this, which is, which is obviously wonderful for everybody, because we know this virus is now, I think they're saying the death toll in London has now exceeded the number of people who died during the Blitz, and the number of people who died from coronavirus in the US has now exceeded the number of people who died in the Vietnam War. This is, you know, I don't think anybody is at this point, but it is not to be taken lightly, and it will stick around until we get a virus for it. We may beat this particular phase of it, but it's not going to go away. So we need to get a vaccine out there, and they've said it's could be a year away, however long, I don't know. Things are being tested now, and they're showing positive results. So hopefully we'll get there. Maybe it's going to be a combination. Maybe this nasal spray is going to be, you know, in the interim, you know, this is where you can protect yourself from getting it. And then down the line, this is a vaccine, so your system will not get it. You cannot get it, so you don't need to use the spray. So maybe things are going to be used in conjunction until we get like a final protocol, which is going to, you know, keep us all safe from it. Anyway, let's move on. Story number 5. This is an odd little story, but a nice one, so I wanted to end on this one. So this is the inside of MSN News. A one-person restaurant is opening in the middle of a field in Sweden, delivering food from a rope out of a kitchen window. So yeah, so Sweden's coronavirus response plan urges people to socially distance but does not enforce a strict lockdown. The country hopes that this method will help it attain herd immunity, which is the point where so many people in one area are immune to a virus that it cannot spread effectively. While bars, restaurants and cafes in Sweden continue to serve seated customers, most of them have roped off every other seat or table in order to enforce social distancing. One restaurant, however, is taking the concept of social distancing to a whole other level. It will only serve one customer per day, seating in the middle of a field via a basket attached to a rope. So the restaurant is aptly named Board for N, which is table for one, is expected to open on May the 10th and stay open until August the 1st. So this is a couple, Rasmus Persson and Linda Carlson, came up with the idea after having lunch with Carlson's parents. When visiting Carlson's parents, Persson and Carlson insisted on following social distancing recommendations in order to keep them safe. Persson, a former chef, made lunch and served it to his in-laws through the window to a nicely set table outside. He said we should make this available for everyone, and afterwards they thought it would be the only COVID-19 safe restaurant in the world, and the couple made a website for Board for N that very same night. So the concept is simple: single table, single chair, out in the middle of a field in Värmland, Sweden. Instead of wait staff, the food will be delivered from the kitchen by a basket attached to a rope. One single guest will be able to enjoy the restaurant per day, Carlson said. We want to be able to concentrate on that sole guest when preparing the meal, but also is a way for us to be able to control the guest experience will be totally COVID-19 free. She adds that the restaurant will also clean the dishes twice and sanitize the table. According to Carlson, each meal will feature 3 courses created by Persson, with drinks by Joel Söderback, known for his many high-end bars in Sweden, including Soje, which made it onto the list of the 50 world's best bars. Oh, very nice. Carlson said the food and drink will be seasonal and locally farmed depending on what's available. A sample menu includes raraka, a Swedish-style hash brown with seaweed caviar and wood-plucked sorrel, and black and yellow carrot ginger puree with browned hazelnut butter and sweet corn croquettes. It sounds very posh. While you may think that such a meal would cost an arm and a leg, Persson and Carlson have decided to let the guests decide how much they're willing to pay for it. He says we are all facing difficult times, and there are people that have lost their jobs, loved ones, or even their mind. We welcome all, no matter what financial situation you're in. Well, that's lovely, isn't it? Persson and Carlson hope that their restaurant will give people a welcome respite and pleasant distraction while still allowing them to focus on themselves rather than stare at a phone or a TV screen. We want to encourage people to sit down and spend quality time with themselves, Carlson said. So yeah, it's just a lovely idea. So yeah, as the picture shows you, it's just a single table in the middle of a field, and you have a post with a rope on it and a basket, and again, it's like you're going to hand over hand and the basket will come to you and it'll have all this fabulous food in. Sounds a bit rich for my taste, but you know, it does, if you're into that, it sounds very nice. And the very fact that it's like, you know, we're not excluding anybody, we're not doing this, oh, it's a unique experience, so it's going to be 500 quid. It's like, no, pay what you think. Everyone's struggling now, and this is your place for your bit of calm in the middle of nowhere. So you're out in space, but you're safe. You know, I think the problem at the minute is people feel shut in. Even people in big houses feel shut in for the simple reason you shouldn't be going out. So this is a nice big open space. You're safe. You know, your food is everything's prepared in the kitchen. Comes straight out the kitchen window to your table, and yeah, I just think it'll be a lovely experience. As you're sat there, you know, inside your own head. You know, there's a gentle breeze, and then you start the ropes, and you can see this basket, and you know it's going to be full of wonderful food and nice drink, and you can probably, as you get it off and open it up, there'll probably be a nice cloth in there, and you know, and you can smell it and the steam rising out of it, and it's just, it sounds wonderful. So yeah, it's just a nice way of kind of giving back for this couple. You know, they're like, you know, it doesn't matter how much you pay, what you think you should pay. One guest per day. So for them, it's clearly not going to be a financial thing. They're clearly doing it out of love, because they're not going to make any money on it, are they? It's just them just giving back a little bit, which is lovely. So there you go. Anyway, so that's it, guys. Links to all the stories I've discussed today can be found in the description, so feel free to go and check them out. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know what you think about this video, and tell me, have you ever been caught on camera doing anything embarrassing like that? Report it. Anything that you think, I really wish somebody hadn't had their phone out at that time. Answers in the comments, please, longer than you thought you'd like to share. These are mine. They're not necessarily important. They're not necessarily right or wrong. They're just what was on my mind. So until next time, bye for now.